Hello, my name is Koen Dyer, SQM agronomist for Europe. I'm here in a potato field in southwestern Poland to evaluate here the harvest on a variety for the industry, the fry industry. This innovator potatoes are almost ready to harvest, but I want to draw your attention to some processes during the growing stage of the potato, which are important to achieve this kind of bigger tubers, because these tubers really have to be filled full of minerals, and all these minerals have to come with the water through the root system of the younger potato plant. This means we need a lot of nutrition to be taken up by the plant, but also we need to consider that the potato has a rather weak root system, and we need to take care that the nutrient solution, let's say, keeps some type of balance, because we also want to prevent difficulties in uptake of this enormous amount of water and nutrients that we need. So the uptake of this massive amount of nutrients is really going on through osmotic uptake via roots. That means that with the water that is flowing naturally from, let's say, a lower concentration in salts outside the roots to a bigger concentration inside the roots, this flow takes up the water, but with the water the nutrients are taking up. So what we need sufficient amount of nutrients outside the roots, root solution, but we don't want the concentration of these nutrients to be too high, because otherwise this flow with water and nutrients will slow down. And this becomes especially important in the period where we really fill these tubers. Then we need a massive amount of nutrients. For example, potassium is the nutrient where you really see this peak demand during tuber filling. Why is that? Because potassium will be needed to transport the photoassimilates that are assimilated in the leaves at photosynthesis towards the tubers. So when we want a good balanced nutritional solution for easy uptake, we need to take care that the nutrient solution consists of not too low amounts of a certain nutrient, not too high amounts of a certain nutrient. Let's take an example of potassium sources, because we can manage the uptake and the balance in the nutrient solution via the selection of fertilizer sources. Potassium is needed in high amounts, as I explained, during tuber filling, and the main potassium sources are potassium chloride, potassium sulfate, potassium nitrate. Yes, and there exactly we find the difference. If you want this massive amount of potassium and you give it with potassium chloride, then you will have an excess of chloride in your nutrient solution. Similar for potassium sulfate. Sulfate might be taking up a bit more than chloride into the plant, but still, if you give it in amounts comparable with the potassium amount that is needed, you will have an excess in sulfate. Both these excesses will create a more difficult uptake of the water flow and the nutrient that flows with them. On top of that, the nitrate from potassium nitrate will have a positive effect on the uptake of cations in general. That's important. We see in many research that the uptake of magnesium and calcium and potassium is increased. Becoming more easy together with the nitrate. We call it the so-called synergistic effect of nitrate with cations. As an example, the balance of nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium in the first period of the growth of the plant is actually different. The uptake is different, with a different balance than later in the stage, where, for example, we have this increased peak uptake of potassium, and where we will have, during tuber filling, we might have a nitrogen to potassium ratio of 1:2 to 1:3, while at the beginning of the plant growth we have rather a nitrogen to potassium ratio of 1 to 1. And by splitting these applications, by using this balanced fertilizers according to the phenological stages, we can not only alleviate the salt level in general, we can also be more precise so that we have at that stage less excess of a certain nutrient and less shortages. For this reason, SQM designed the crop mix range. The crop mix range allows us to give a certain balance that fits really well during a certain uptake phase by the plant. For example, in the initial phase, we will have a balance of nitrogen over potassium of 1 to 1 and a relatively high phosphorus content, because in these phases this is actually the right balance that we require. For the later stage, where we need to take up more than double even potassium than nitrogen, there we provide a balance with nitrogen over potassium at around 1 to 2. We have other options depending on the reserves in the soil as well. To conclude, the management of the nutrient solution is important for an efficient uptake in plants. If we want to improve this uptake of potassium, magnesium, calcium, but also sulfur, nitrogen, phosphorus, we need to use balanced formulas that are as close to the uptake demand of the plant. This is why we developed crop mix formulas.